So Horo and I have been working on these Hypertexture products, and I just thought to generate a bit of interest I would show you how to create a special effect lens with a Hypertexture. So I'm going to create a default Bryce sphere, modify the material. I don't need any diffuse, I need 100 transparency, I want it to be in blend transparency, and I don't need any of these options for shadows, and I do want additive. So that's set up except for my Hypertexture, so it's going to be in here and it's going to be an ambience of 2 or thereabouts. Well, we'll see. So to create a Hypertexture, as in the other videos, I'm going to click on the name here and navigate to basic, and I'm going to modify this check blue basic texture component. So in the deep texture editor, get rid of the color and the bump, so you've only got the alpha output. Click on these corner buttons to open up the dialogues. Click on noise, and for type select distance squared. For mode select minimum, octaves 1 and a frequency of -1. And if you've followed any of the other videos, you'll know that this creates a very high negative output. Now if I wanted an even higher output, I can take this, put it in component 2 and multiply. And now this is an extreme level of output, unmanageably so, but it starts to have different effects than just the high negative output. So here it's gone fully black, even though it's very high positive, so it's obviously affecting the way that the material is handled in a different way. But it's too high to do anything with. So in this case I'm going to take this component here and multiply again, and then just set this one down to nothing, turn the octaves off, and then using this filter activated for component 3, select sine, reset it, and as I've demonstrated before, by multiplying with this sine filter you can set this alpha channel to quite a small value, and that allows you to bring this back into usable ranges. But this is a very high range, so what I'm aiming to do here is, if you look at this pattern that's being generated, it's a sort of moire pattern, an interference pattern. When it starts to spread out into spots, it's becoming usable. It's still not there yet, but alpha scaling might bring it in. So you can see now there's a sort of light patch which might just look like a faint level of ambience. However, appearances can be deceptive, and this effect is coming around for different reasons. So although it looks fairly ordinary, when we check out of here and you apply this around the camera, you'll actually get special effect. You can already see it looks a little bit strange there. So I need to get the camera where this is positioned. So if I look where this is, it's at 1024 and everything else is set to 0. So I'll just select the camera and modify its attributes so that it's placed at the origin of this sphere, and then I'll select the sphere and go to the attributes and link that to the perspective camera, so that when I move the camera now the sphere will track with it, and then you'll see that things look a little bit odd. And this effect is coming around through, if we go to sky and fog, the ambient channel and the setting on this sphere of this scaled value. So if I set this down a bit lower, right, you can see a bit of what's going on here. It has the effect of posterizing, and the higher that value set, the fewer levels of posterization. But there's a little bit more to it than that, because if you modify the color value of the ambient, then it starts to shift the colors around as well. So it's perhaps not that clear in this example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the ground plane just to show you this, and I'm going to load in one of Horo's HDRI images. So image based lighting, use HDRI image, open. I'm going to use this VR pit. I'll select the high resolution version. I'm just using this as background. I don't need any light output from it, so I'll just set these values to 0 and increase the background intensity, so we'll render in scene. You can see a bit of the effect occurring now, and then I'm going to just make sure I've added it to the sky, and then I'm going to set the atmosphere off so there's no interference from any haze, and set the atmosphere to fully black, so you just got the image. So I'm just going to roll the camera around so we get a bit of a view down this corridor area here, and then by modifying the value in the ambient channel you can see depending on the level that it's set in, that it has different effects on the posterization levels. So in the sphere, I could set this down to 0.5, so this should have more bands. And then I can modify this and make it an orangey colour. Then you'll see that it's affecting this and created this sort of like posterization effect. And then I can turn this up to say 2, so the effect's more dramatic and the bands are broader. So you can see that the posterization effect here, depending on the colour that's chosen, or fully white, will be quite a dramatic effect. So you see that's really cut things down. You can keep going with this modification. So there we go. That's really made it an extreme effect. And once again, with the experiment with the colours to see what effect that has. So there's a little bit to play with here. I thought it was an interesting effect. I don't know what I'm going to choose for the video image. That's really quite dramatically weird, that. So we go. I'll just set it at the most extreme level there. Right then, so that's a way of creating a posterization filter. So without using any post effects, you can posterize your renders in Bryce using one of these hypertexture effects. It can be a little bit fiddly to set up, but if you follow the process, then you'll get there. Just remember, you need alpha scaling as well to bring it back into range, because this is a very extreme value that's generated by the hypertexture needs to be brought under control so it's coming into a usable place. Okay then, that's the end of the video. Hope you found it interesting and useful and that you'll experiment with this effect in your own renders.